Okay, the next oak is the chinkapin oak, Quercus muhlenbergii, and that's Fagaceae family, which is the oak beech family. It is alternate. I think you can see that on the right on the twig. It has fairly large buds, and they are pointed and in clusters. All the oaks put their buds in clusters, especially you can see that at the tip of the branch. So you can see a couple side branches on this, and they are alternate. Now, the leaf is rather interesting because it's not curved, as I said earlier. All the all the oaks have curved tips. Well, these do not technically have curves, but technically you could call them curves. If you looked at them very carefully, there's one in the middle of the dark red colored leaf that you can kind of see the tip there at the end of that sawtooth edge. And that's what makes it a white oak, because it gives it a curved, more of a curved shape at the tip than a pointed shape. So even though it looks pointed, it is a white oak, and therefore its nuts are edible, and I mean edible. As long as you can recognize this as chinkapin oak, I don't think there's anything wrong with at least trying to taste a little bit of the inside nut, which would mean you would have to take the cap off and kind of crack that thing and peel it off and eat the little piece that is in the piece that's kind of oval shaped in the center. So good luck. And you can see that the left leaf is lighter. That's the back of the leaf, and the right leaf is a little bit reddish brown. And they have very nice venation on them, straight angles, equal angles almost on all the way up the branch. And then on the left, you can see another sample of the stem, and it is alternate. So that will do it. This is a pin oak, and the pin oak has classic lobes, fairly large, and the stems or the leaves kind of vary in size from quite small to medium size, I suppose, or large even. And the venation is there. You can also see that. The caps can be sessile. In other words, they stay on the branch sometimes in the center of the oak, which is the true part of the nut with a covering on it. It will fall off of there, and squirrels love these things. They do come in pairs, as you can see on the one that's hooked together by one stem or two. I'm not sure about that, but they are hooked together. And so this is pin oak, Quercus palustris, beech family, Fagaceae. Okay, the next oak is the northern red oak, often called just red oak, and it has similar leaves to the pin. No, not the pin. Yeah, to the pin oak. These are usually more C-shaped than the ones for the pin oak, and they are wider and don't really come around like a C shape as much. And the buds you can see on the right branch, there are several of them in there. Generally, they tend to be long and pointed, like the one at the bottom of that branch. So they're fairly distinctive for the red oak, and they do have that reddish color also. The nuts probably not very edible. One of the reasons that the red oaks are not, the red oak family nuts are not very edible is that they take 2 years to grow. So that tree is pumping tannins into those nuts, and the tannins are the bad part. So this is a fairly good sized stem, and we have Quercus rubra is the scientific name, oak beech family, Fagaceae, and alternates as you see there on the branches. The bark has a very shiny surface to it, and it's vertical on the plant, and it's about maybe an inch to an inch and a half wide, and it usually follows straight up the tree. Now that's not easy to see, truthfully, but it is there, and you will get used to it if you watch it enough to see one enough times. So, okay. Okay, now we're into the elm family, which is Ulmus and Ulmaceae. Ulmus is the scientific part of the scientific name that's used most commonly, and it's Ulmus americana. And I want to go into why it's Americana, or how you can use Americana to identify this one. The bark is alternating with white and red, and the bark is at just below the bottom leaf there, and it's in layers. The bark builds in layers on most of the plants, the trees, and this one is red and white. Now, if you add blue to that, you get red, white, and blue, and so that would tell you that this is American elm and not slippery elm, which we will see in a few minutes. So this is alternate buds on both of these, and I think you can see those fairly easily. The flowers are very small, and I think those are flowers on the right. And the leaves are pointed, sawtooth edges, very sharp at the tips. They are a little bit fuzzy and fairly easy to identify, except for with slippery elm, which we'll be doing next. Okay, now the leaf scar on this plant is really something. And the leaf scar, if you look at the one on the left, you can see down the second bud down. Just below that, you should see kind of a chocolatey semicircle, and that is the smiley face, I call it, but I actually call it E.T. because it looks to me like E.T. From the movie, and it has 3 dots on it, and it just looks a lot like E.T. So remember that, and you might be able to find that plant. Okay, the next slide is slippery elm, and as I said, it's related to the previous American elm, only this time when you look at the bark, which is in the center there, between the twig and the bottom leaf, it does have layers, but they are brown, dark brown layers, and so they're not red, white, and blue, basically. So this is slippery elm. It does have a little more fuzziness to the leaves, and the leaves are much bigger than the American elm. So that's a good way. It's got a quite short stem on it and toothed edges. And the buds, the next year's buds are on the sides. They look like brown balls, and they're very large. So if you see those in the fall of the year, and they do come out, they're out now, and through the winter, they will open up and produce stems, leaves, and flowers later on. And sorry, this covered over part of the scientific name. It is Ulmus rubra, though. That's rubra on the right for red because of the reddish brown buds. And most of the inner bark is used to chew, and it seems to calm or help sore throats. So that's kind of interesting. And that's on the larger branches, maybe 2 inches or so, or 1 inch or 2 inches, someplace in that range. I've tried it. It's very interesting. So that's pretty good. Okay, now we're into the hickory and walnut series. First, we'll do the hickories. This is bitternut hickory. Guess what? It's not edible. Not very edible anyway. You'd have to really work on it by boiling it over and over and over. These walnuts have a hard cover that's in usually 4, maybe 3 size 3 blocks of them around the nut, and you can put a knife in there and peel them off. Usually, and sometimes later on in the winter, they will fall off. The nut is very round and a little flattish, a pointy tip, and again, it is not edible either. And we are alternate, and I think that's about it. One more, I'm sorry. If you look at the bud on the right, off the bottom branch, you'll see what looks almost like gold. And I tell all my students or Cub Scouts, Girl Scouts, whatever, let's go hunting for gold in the winter. And they really are beautiful, beautiful buds. They're about 4 scales, I think. Very, very interesting. Good way to identify it.